Welcome to the Santita Jackson Show, where we seek not to conform to the world, but to be transformed by God. Let's talk about Trayvon Martin. This case has gripped this nation, and it has captured the attention of the entire world. Why? Perhaps because it's a 17-year-old boy, a story about a 17-year-old child who was killed just trying to get home. How is it that the police told George Zimmerman, his killer, no? And yet he felt empowered to go. And now we have a dead child. What happened, everybody? What is happening? Why is Trayvon Martin dead? And how was George Zimmerman exonerated? But first, let's talk about your feelings. How do you feel about this? Are you as pained as I am? Are you as empowered as I am to go and get justice? But we must do it in a gentle way, everybody. Because hate only begets hate. Love begets love. And in between all of that, we need justice and we need mercy. And we need it now. How is it that Trayvon went from being the victim to being the aggressor? We're going to answer these questions and so many more on the Santita Jackson Show. Welcome to the Santita Jackson Show. I want you to reach out to me on Facebook now on the Santita Jackson fan page and on Twitter. Look, Davon, I'm in the mix at Santita J. I want to talk to you about Trayvon Martin. I want to talk to you about this case because it's just been a lot for me to take in. I have a black father. I've got black brothers. I've got black male friends. I do feel when I see this case that I'm now beginning to understand my mother even more. She would always fret and worry every time my father certainly and my brothers absolutely when they would leave the house. And as I got older, she would say to me, the reason I worry so much is because I am afraid that when they leave the house, they won't come back. Well, that was the nightmare fulfilled of Sabrina Fulton and Tracy Martin. He left home. Trayvon Martin left home just to get some Skittles and some iced tea. And he was killed. Just shot. Why? Let's talk about this with our esteemed panel. We have got Davon Darby, a burgeoning lawyer. You are in law school coming into your second year. You're also press secretary for Congressman John Conyers. But you're a young person, and I want to hear from you today. And of course, Attorney Linda Bernard, broken leg and all, with her pumps on, but we love her. Noted civil rights attorney, family attorney. Can't wait to talk with you about this. And we have a new gentleman on our panel next to Dawood Waleed. That's the great imam. We love you, but we want to welcome you. I want to call you professor, I want to call you doctor, but you are attorney Nabi Ayad, and you're from the Arab American Civil Rights League, but you're also on the Legal Redress Board of the NAACP. So we have got a fantastic panel. People who are eminently, really, you're ready and qualified to talk about this. But let me go to you, because we've been mixing up trying to figure out who we want to go to first, but I'm coming to you, Dawood Waleed, because you're an African-American male. You are also Muslim. Yep. So you're profiled many, many, many times. Can you fly? Just kidding.
Driving while black, flying while Muslim.
I'm like, man, when you heard about this, because I want to do a round robin with everybody, because I think it's important to hear from you how you felt. Before we talk about the facts of the case and all of that, we're going to do a couple of shows on this. How did you feel when you heard that George Zimmerman had been found not guilty of killing Trayvon Martin?
Well, I was sitting in my car and I had it on news talk radio, and when I heard it, I wasn't totally surprised, but it kind of felt like when I was in my late teens and I heard about the situation with Rodney King, and it took me right back to that feeling. It's almost like getting hit in my stomach. Then the next thing I thought about is that I have two young sons, two young African-American sons.
How old are they?
One is about to turn 12 and one just turned 9. And I'm thinking, in the very near future, I'm going to have that talk with them that my folks had with me in terms of going out, being careful, not looking certain folks in the eyes, not having your hands in your pocket. All that talk that many of us, I think all of us young black males had, coming up in the 80s and all of the
in the
rich
1880s,
in the 1980s, in the 1980s,
yeah, 1780s.
And the same talk that we got, that my daddy's generation got, that my granddaddy's generation got, of being a black man in America and worrying about not just 5-0 or the police roughing you up or profiling, but even vigilantes and nuts like George Zimmerman.
Well, you know, Attorney Linda Bernard.
Yes.
How did you feel?
Well, the first thing I thought about, well, I was terribly distressed, of course, but I also thought about the jury. And I thought about those 6 women that were in the jury room, and I could tell by the way that the verdict had come out, and also the rulings that they made subsequent to that, that they didn't want to do any media, that they wanted their identities concealed forever, that there was one strong woman in that jury room that sort, in my opinion, muscled everybody else into submission. The reason I say that is that halfway through the trial they asked for the new instructions regarding manslaughter. So they had already pushed second-degree murder off the table. And in order to get those people that were thinking that this killing was wrong or this guy shouldn't have did this, it took a very strong personality in that jury room
say, hey,
to bend down, you know, pushed everybody down and get that kind of agreement. And also the agreement that they wouldn't talk, that they wanted that they wouldn't be on the media, that they wouldn't have their identities revealed. That's all one person.
But how did that make you feel? I mean, because, you know, we have to, you know, pardon Linda, because, you know, she's the first African American to get a master's in law from the University of Pennsylvania. So she's always wearing a whole lot of different hats. I have to give that to you.
Oh, thank you.
I mean, really. But how did you feel?
I felt disgusted. I felt sick to my stomach. I recognize the influence of racism in America, and that is the sine qua non. Everything is based on race, because had this been reversed, had this been a black guy who had shot and killed a young white guy, he would have been tarred, feathered, hung, executed.
And I don't mean death row records.
You're
death
right.
row.
He would have been charged with murder 1. It would have been over.
Well, Attorney Ayad, because before we get to the young lady, you know, I think we are shocked but not surprised. You know, and I think the young people, your generation, Davon, many of you, I mean, you've got a lot of political and movement experience, but many of them are shocked. I'm hearing that a lot of them are now starting to, are listening to the news, or looking at the news, they're very curious. How did you feel, Attorney Ayad? I mean, you deal with not only issues nationally, but you deal with them internationally, and this is resonating in the West Bank. I mean, people are talking about this everywhere. How did you feel?
Well, first of all, as an Arab American, I felt, you know, we're used to disappointments in our community, especially after the 9/11 terrorist attacks and what have you. And as Dawood was saying, you know, you have driving while African American, you have flying while Arab, and we have a lot of the similar issues. But there are certain times and certain incidents that jump up at you as so fundamentally wrong, so absolutely wrong, that you start imagining in your mind, what does this mean? When I was sitting down on a dinner table on Saturday night when I heard this information, the first thing I said, I felt extremely saddened. I'm a civil rights attorney. We've handled numerous high-profile cases. I felt so extremely saddened. One, I thought about the parents, number one, about Trayvon Martin. How do they feel at this moment that their son was slayed and no one basically came to their call for justice was not served?
How do you think they felt?
You know, and I would have to think such extreme despair, you know, extreme despair as the system does not work for them. And you have to think, as an African American or as an Arab American, all the civil rights movement, the years, the people that have died before to make what was wrong right, it seems that we have now gotten back. We moved back. And I started thinking to my mind, and I started, you know, thinking how serious this was. And I thought to myself of, you know, African Americans that shoot their dog get years in jail with Michael Vick. You have African Americans that shot their own self. You know, the one professional, he gets jails in. But a white individual could shoot a 17-year-old individual without doing any wrongful conduct and clear racial profiling this individual, kill him and basically be found not guilty. It's just so sad. This individual didn't have a gun, he didn't have a weapon, he wasn't doing anything illegal. The police told him to stay away, but yet he convicted. So it was a sad day for all the civil rights community, instead they're really for humanity. And this must be corrected. That's why we have called upon the Attorney General Holder. We have sent a letter from the Arab American Civil Rights League saying that we ask you, Attorney General, to take a look at this, apply the federal hate crime statutes against this individual, and make what has been wronged right.
Davon Darby, you are a young law student. You are in your early 20s. How did you feel? I mean, how just on a human level, when you're sitting at home, or it's a Saturday night.
I was at home.
Okay, you would know. I mean, really, I'm not trying to be funny, but you're at home on a Saturday night, and you keep, with wall-to-wall coverage. I have to paint the picture. Wall-to-wall coverage of this case. Maybe we'll get a verdict today, maybe we won't. And then you see all of this. Yes, I'm doing that. I'm driving sound people crazy on my show. Love them. You hear all this activity, and they say, "Wait a minute, we have a verdict. We have a verdict." Okay, now let us be there. And I think it's important for us to be there because you're so young. See, we've had a lot of disappointments. Like I said, I think collectively I could safely say that we're shocked, but not surprised. Were you surprised and shocked, shocked and awed? Help me out.
No, I was none of that. Someone asked me that Friday, they said, what do you think is going to happen? I said, well, based on those instructions, he should at least get manslaughter because this man has said, I shot him, I got out the car, the police told me to stay.
Oh, look, he turned and said, tell my wife I shot somebody.
Yeah, so he's admitted that he did something to someone else. And they said, so would you be surprised if he got off? I said, no. It's 2013, but no, I grew up in the North, went to HBCU in the South in Atlanta, and even going to school down there, I did not really experience racism, never have in my life. But if you talk to older people, if you pay attention to what's going on now.
You experienced it, but not the hostilities.
Right, I have not experienced the hostilities.
See, I think that's part of the danger of not having dealt with hostilities. You get really comfortable. You're like the rabbit in the pot, and the fire's getting hotter, but you have no idea. But how did you feel? How did you feel on Saturday? The verdict. It's coming. It's coming. It's coming.
I wasn't surprised.
You see him stand up in court. Sad. How did you feel?
I was sad. I'm not surprised, but I'm sad because naively there was some hope that this guy has done something, and if he gets off, then there's just a dead child, and that's what there is, a dead child.
Just a dead child.
Yeah.
Do you worry about your young male friends who are black?
Yes.
Have any of them? Do you have any friends who've been arrested or who've been pulled over by the police?
Absolutely, you're absolutely right. I have experienced it in Atlanta. Me and a friend of mine.
You've experienced what?
Racism. He's probably about 9 years older than me. So this is when I was 20, and he was about 28, 29, and we were in Atlanta. We had just come from the movies one Friday or Saturday night, and he has two cars, or had two cars, regular Malibu, and then he had a Corvette, a little red Corvette at that. We're coming from the movies in Buckhead on my way back to campus.
Which is an affluent area in Atlanta.
Yes, affluent area in Atlanta. We're headed back to the AU Center, the Atlanta University Center. Not speeding or anything because we're driving down Peachtree. You can't speed on Peachtree because it's not a freeway. And we get pulled over for nothing, not by a white cop. Now, the cop let us go because it was actually his car and his papers, but we got pulled over and had to get out the car for nothing. Now, of course, that implies that you were looking for some drugs or something of that nature. But yeah,
how did he react?
He was annoyed, of course, but he was fine. He didn't get out of character. Nothing happened. We were able to go back to campus, and that's just a memory that we have. But, I mean, he was fine, annoyed.
But so you're not going to, it's very interesting that I think all of us have these stories about flying while Muslim, driving while black, walking down the street while black. So it was kind of tongue in cheek when I talked to you, when I asked the question, Dawood, when you talked about the 80s. I'm like, is this the 1880s? When you said, I've got to talk to my sons about not looking someone in the eye. I mean, and I don't think that we should forget that Trayvon was at home. Wait. He was where he was supposed to be for all of the discussions about black fathers who are not responsible, who are not responsive to their children. He was with his father. His father was out for a hot second. He was on his way home to be with his soon-to-be 12-year-old stepbrother. He was where he was supposed to be. He was babysitting. He ran to the store. Oh, you want something? He left him at home. No, you stay here. I'll be right. I'm just working this out in my mind because I'm the eldest. I've babysat my brothers and my sister. No, you stay here. I'll be back. That's a protectiveness. And then you have someone who is, he ends up dead. And that's why I felt that it was important for us to talk about the emotionality of it, because now, in my other life, I'm a Fox News contributor, and I was in New York that night. And I was asked, what do you think is going to happen? Because everybody's been up in arms, worried about riots. Are they going to come? Are they going to come? I said, wait a minute. This has been released in the middle of the night. In the middle of the night. Now, what will happen tomorrow at church when people find out? What's going to happen on Monday at the water cooler? Monday at lunch, Monday at dinner. Tuesday, you're going to see a different story.
Even the discussion you're talking about the riots, there's racist implications even in saying that
they're
there's going to be
rubber bullets into the crowd. It's almost as if they want a riot.
Yeah.
And people want justice. They don't want a riot. They don't want to tear up their neighborhoods.
No.
I feel like people's emotionality and our pain is being exploited. And after it's all over, if we're not careful, we won't get anything done.
Well, the U.S. Attorney's Office today said they had received more than 1 million emails and letters regarding the request for an investigation and so forth. And the outrage for this, though, does transcend our community. So many people, so many white people are involved, and they feel
when you see
equally,
the marches.
Yeah,
but why do you?
It's really
let
it's
me
a
open
human
this
rights
up.
issue at this point.
Because you, Attorney Ayad, you said, wait a minute. You talked about our humanity. And we keep hearing about man's inhumanity to man, because race for us is like a fig leaf. Right. It really enables us not to look at the deeper issues of how we treat each other. Right.
Absolutely.
You saw this as really a human issue. And I'm seeing a maturing in America, even though we still struggle, because I'm seeing folks really just go out in the streets, black, white, brown, yellow, and red, and say, hey, I don't like this. Why do you think that's happening? What do you think has moved us all about Trayvon Martin?
Well, it reminded us very, very vividly and clearly that racism still is alive and well and breathing. In all sincerity, that's what I think Trayvon showed us, that it's still alive and well. Yeah, they have laws that basically make it more easy for the racist or the individual basically to make that particular hate crime or make that hate murder, the standing ground rules as they have in Florida and Texas and even here in Michigan. So it's
you have standing ground in Michigan?
Yeah.
Yes, absolutely.
Let me get out of here.
Yeah,
really?
I've actually written for tomorrow's newspaper an op-ed about that and stuff. So the fact is, it reminded us that there are still people in this world, in the United States, that absolutely have hate in their hearts. Okay, it was a clear reminder that it's still alive, and I think that's what really shocked people. You're a lawyer now.
Absolutely. Because they feel that actually juror number 37, B37, has been talking, and she said, I'm shocked by the familiality. She feels quite familial, they did, toward George Zimmerman.
Totally.
And
totally.
I don't see a connection with them. God bless them, because they had a hard job, and even the cultural leaps that they had to make. But I can't give them that much space, because to me, they let a killer go free. God bless him, but really, this is a child.
Right. Yeah, the justice system, as we always, and as I open all my statements, I do my closing arguments for the jury. We have the best system in the world, but it's not perfect. And I think that in that particular trial, it clearly failed us. It clearly failed us.
You think we were failed?
Absolutely. The justice system isn't perfect, and that is another reminder at that time with George Zimmerman, when he got acquitted, it reminds us of the failures in the system. Because at the end of the day, it's about how you've grown up, how you perceive certain individuals. It's still the humanitarian touch to it, a human touch to an individual's thoughts or perceptions of certain individuals. And that society all plays a role into it. So those individuals were given a quote-unquote little excuse trying to say that Trayvon was aggressive in a certain way, or that justifies to go ahead and kill someone, basically.
But they're saying to me that Trayvon shouldn't have fought back.
Yeah, exactly. Trayvon, yeah. And not, if we were to take that logic and adopt it to anybody, I can approach anyone, start a fight with them, then when he tries to defend themselves or hit me, I shoot him and kill him.
Would you say that one more time, please?
Yeah, it's illogical because it is making individuals, especially individuals, such hate in their heart. Because remember, there has not been one African American that's ever used the benefits of stand your ground rules that was successful on it. It's always been to the benefits of the white Caucasian individuals.
Are you referring to the Melissa Alexander case, the woman who shot at her abusive husband, and she ended up in jail. She was jailed last year for 20 years.
And we've seen
though a paper in Florida did a piece on, I think this last year, the year before, and said that 73% of the African Americans in Florida that try to use stand your ground, they go to jail. So it's not just her. There are other people that we don't know about.
We got a whole lot of Marissa.
Yeah. There's a statistic that says that white men who use stand their ground, if they're shooting a black man or a minority, 354%
that's correct,
more likely to get off than if a white male is shot. So if they shoot a black man, they have a 354% chance of getting off in comparison if a white man shot.
So white life is cheap. But this is what I feel like. What is it there? It's just crazy.
But see, once again, I think this goes back to the jury, because I don't agree that the prosecutors did a poor job or anything like that. I think they did a good job. I think they actually they did far better than many would have done in the similar circumstances. So I don't blame them at all. It goes back to the jury doing what you said earlier. They totally identified with Zimmerman. They are all white people sitting there. And, you know, if there's any threat to a white person, then of course white makes right, you know, black get back. I mean, it just is what it is. Everything that they presented, that the defense presented, they took as gospel, even though the facts indicated that something entirely different occurred, and all the facts that you have listed and that you've referenced all along.
You know, I have two things about that. One, I don't think it was the jury identifying with Zimmerman as much as they just had no type of identification or connection with Trayvon. And the second thing is, in this whole discussion about race relations, we have to talk about internalized oppression, or what people of color do to other people of color. Because see, Zimmerman, not only did he have a Latino, but he also had a black grandmother. Like, that came out during the whole discussion too. He has African American in his family, in his genes.
I'm not shocked by that.
So I'm saying the whole thing where I'm getting is that sometimes we as people of color, we internalize the bigotry of the broader white supremacist society, and then we impose it on other people of color. That's why sometimes the worst cops to come in contact with is the black cop, not even the white cop.
The overseer on the plantation was almost always black.
That's right.
He knew you. He got you. You got to wash
Django.
it. Go look.
Hey.
Bingo. Okay? I mean, but and this happens all the time. I wasn't, because I was shocked that he was described as white, because when I saw him, he said, he's not a white guy to me. So when they're done with him, they'll revoke his white card, and
that's right.
That's the end of that.
Now with a name like Zimmerman.
Well, you know what?
Perfect German Jewish name.
You know, but you know what? At the end of the day, this man dehumanized a child and killed him. And we can take on all of these identities that we want to, and I don't want to minimize the black and white dynamic, because I think it's very important. Racism is real in America. Colorism is real in America and in the world. That said, somehow or another, I mean, we've got an Arab American brother who's standing here who's saying, hey, I got sick when I heard this. I've seen white people who are furious, who said, wait a minute, hey, this is not right. And I'm trying to figure out how it is that that this boy, in the simple act of going home, he shot. His father is looking for him, and no one will give him an answer. He can't get an answer. Even as the media plays up Trayvon Martin's mother and not his dad. It's as if, I mean, and in the courtroom, what was interesting was when they asked Javaris Fulton, Trayvon's brother, about his connection to Tracy Martin, Well, is he your, finally, you know, because he's like, he's my dad. Well, is he your biological father?
Yeah.
Hey, wait a minute. That's my father. He
Right.
said, that's the only father I've ever known. And no one is lifting up Tracy Martin and thanking him for being a man, taking care of his children. Wait a minute. I mean, and this man embraced Javaris and embraced his child at home who he has yet to adopt. And I just so much about this, just, I have to tell you, even with my being shocked but not surprised, I still wept. Because I thought
we all
about,
did.
I have a nephew who's 15 now.
We all do.
You know, I've got my brothers who have been in the back of police cars, you know, just, and I'm just trying to figure out where it is that we go from here with these feelings. Because I feel like we feel a lot. And I'm even surprised at the depth of the pain. Trayvon has pricked something in the American psyche and in the world psyche, and I'm trying to dig down and find out what it is.
I think that's because we thought, maybe some of us, maybe my generation, we hear these stories and we see these pictures and see this stuff on the TV of what happened during the civil rights movement, and we hear about slavery and we hear about Reconstruction and all that stuff. And we, for the most part, you have white friends, you have Latino friends, you have Arab friends. We have moved past that, the whole racism thing. But then you have things such as Trayvon Martin slap you in the face, and it's like, wow, I mean, he was black, but he could have been anybody. He could have been my Latino friend. He could have been Chinese, as Rachel Jontil said last night. You know, when she talks, it could mean anybody. It's not just a racist term when she talks. But I think what this case does for us now is lets us know, although we may have been trying to pretend that, hey, everybody, racism is still going on, it's alive and well, and we need to talk about that. And then once we talk about that, so we can get to the root of the issue, because that's the problem. We need to figure out how we can really have an honest, open, candid conversation about that and move past that. Because until then, while we, excuse my French, but pussyfoot around racism and act like it's not, really the elephant in the room, we're still going to be back here. People are still going to harbor terrible feelings about maybe the other race, or people are going to feel like, oh, the next time somebody has an all-white jury, this person won't get justice. So we need to have a real conversation about that so we can move past that and try to really move into the so-called post-racial America that we act like we are.
I will say this, because we're going to have a part 2 of this conversation, and so Attorney Ayad, I would like for you to stay with the panel. You're part of the family now. Sorry, it's a crazy family, but it's yours. And I want you to hold on, because next week we're going to be talking about a lot of issues about this case that you did not know. You did not know. But for those of you who are weeping tonight, we have been taught that weeping endureth for a night, but joy will come in the morning. And Bobby Blue Bland, the blues great, said, you know what? You gotta hurt before you heal. But somewhere I heard tell that earth has no sorrow that heaven cannot heal. So hold on until the morning comes, everybody. Because if we are going to be God's people, we need to be humble, we need to pray, we need to turn from our wicked ways and seek God's face, and then we can hear from heaven, and then we can have justice. It's not just about eliminating racism, everybody. It's about having justice. It's about having the kingdom of God be here on earth. See you next week.
Thanks for watching this edition of the Santita Jackson Show.